Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to dose up with some psychedelics and take a trip through infinity with Ken Russell's 1980 psycho thriller, Altered States. Let's get to it. We open on a man in a tank, depriving himself of sensations, possibly altering his state? This is our main character, Professor Eddie Jessup, and he's being monitored by his peer, Arthur, also known as the Dial Master in familiar circles. Through voiceover narration, we learn that after some positive feedback from test subjects, the professor decided to try it out himself to verify the results. He returns from the Upside Down and confirms he had achieved sustained hallucinations, and is enthusiastic about continued testing. At a soiree that evening, they're discussing his experiments when he enters. Arthur's roommate both beholds his visage and blushes, as do we all. Through an expositional relationship, we learn that he's exploring the roots of schizophrenia and religious experience. The chamber allows him to mess around with human subjects in a non-invasive way. Then they bone down, until this architectural pattern reminds him of something.
Jesus, crucifixions.
So no orgasms or no? Okay. He reveals that he's driven by the death of his father, whose end-of-life experience led Jessup to believe that life's suffering is met only by the continued suffering of death. It's all just a non-stop cycle of suffering. So does that do it for you? We then get a hallucination scene representing a normal day at the office, and then we find out that Emily's gotten a job at Harvard just like Eddie, and they've been dating for 2 months, so she naturally suggests they get married. Understanding that he's a bit of a nutter with limited prospects, he says, why not? We then cut to a friendly reunion with Arthur 7 years later. We learn through gossip that Emily's taking the kids to Africa for a year while Eddie explores a new psychedelic he learned about down south. He's grown uncomfortable with the senseless banality of everyday life, so this will act as a trial separation before they presumably get a divorce. He and his guide find the tribe that ritualizes the particular mushroom they're interested in, and they agree to let him join, so long as he searches his evolutionary memory until he finds himself at a crack through which he will embrace eternity. Hey, there it is! Oh, that's just the cave they're walking to. When he's invited to the circle, he finds that they're really just kind of winging it with the recipes, since gringo blood was just a happy accident. He composes himself, puts a bandage on his hand, grabs the penis gourd, and starts slurping. He immediately starts his trip down memory lane. Fireworks, lizards, laughing, the elimination of the self in the sands of infinite time. You know, it's profound stuff. Eddie is upset when he wakes to find that they claim he smushed a lizard while tripping, because he figures the locals are just goofing on him, so he sends some of the mixture back for analysis and rushes off. The experiments continue at home, and he expresses a desire to fix up a new deprivation tank they've found, thinking it will enhance his experiences and allow him to push through. In his first session, he talks them through what he's witnessing. He finds himself among a group of proto-humans, and he transitions from watching to participating as they consume a goat. When he starts vocalizing like an early primate, they remove him, only to discover some complications. He still can't talk, but writes down orders for a blood draw and an x-ray of his throat. Mason, their windbag friend, insists on a professional opinion for reasons related to his many credentials, which he apparently enjoys yelling at people as he departs. But even his radiologist confirms.
This guy's a fucking gorilla.
Later in bed, we see that Eddie has some continued transient regression. No, really, he's got it all over. But the sensation eventually passes. Cut to 3 months later, and he's picking his family up from the airport. Sure, he's happy they're back, but he's really mostly interested in Emily's monkey research. He wants to verify if she has any recordings of baboon vocalizations to compare his evidence against. We find out he's been wanting to repeat the experiment, but his partners are far too concerned with his safety to allow him to continue. The cowards. He's desperate to prove that consciousness is as real and tangible as any other part of our universe and can be externalized. He decides to go rogue that evening with a solo session. He gets much further this time, and when a janitor goes to check on a noise, he gets Donkey Konged in the face. The janitor solicits help from the security guard, who calls it in as an escaped animal. He then receives a primordial beatdown before Monkey Man takes it to the streets, jumping nimbly and portraying the stage actor's version of being a monkey. Ha! Ja! Monkey jump! Glide! Point! He ends up at the zoo where he brings a rock to a rhino fight and then traipses around until he finds a goat to eat. The security guards are really earning their paychecks tonight, as this one has to deal with finding a nude man near the carrion. He's bailed out and brought home, where he seems bemused by everyone else's experience of the evening.
I suppose you've been sitting here all this time.
Later, Emily listens to the tapes from the first session and hears the unmistakable grunts of an early primate, which compels her to join them in one last experiment to find the truth. This one, however, doesn't go quite the same. Eddie goes way back and everyone's overcome by infinity. The tank turns into a swirling quantum smoke hole. She looks into it and finds him right behind the red blood cells and next to the pulsing microbes. She manages to pull him back from the brink. He comes out damp, but otherwise unscathed. Mason Fireman carries him home, then looks him over with his doctor's bag. Emily falls apart, realizing she'll never be free of her obsession with him, reminding us that this had been a love story at one point. And the fellows leave while arguing about what it all means. That evening, Eddie wakes up and shows us for about the 5th time this movie how good he is at covering his nards with his foot. The next morning we learn he has arrived at the final truth and found it empty. He's ready now to commit to his family, but maybe not to the degree that it may require him to move back in. It's all about baby steps. In the end, he has another regression, which he transfers to Emily somehow. He manages to beat it out of himself and then returns the heart of Tafiti, restoring Emily to her former average self. Having now pulled each other back from the edge of an endless, empty abyss, they're ready to face the exciting life that they have ahead of them as part-time energy beings. And that was Altered States. This was William Hurt's first movie, and you can tell he really went for it. This one is more strange than scary, but it's worth checking out. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. And thanks for watching.